All right. And now to talk about our module of the week, let's turn it over to Martin Anderson Klutz, a senior solutions engineer at Acquia and a maintainer of a number of Drupal modules and recipes of his own. Martin, what do you have for us this week?
Thanks, John. Have you been looking for an inexpensive way to mitigate an upsurge of bot traffic on your Drupal site's faceted search pages? There's a module for that. It's called Facet Bot Blocker, and it was created in March of 2025, so about 2 months ago, by John Brandenburg of Forum One. It has a 1.0.2 version available, which supports Drupal 10 and 11, is actively maintained, and it currently has 4 open issues, one of which is a bug, but it did have a fix merge just 4 days ago. According to Drupal.org, it is currently in use by 106 sites. And a number of sites are seeing a huge upswing in bot traffic, and quite often a big part of that bot traffic is on one or more pages with faceted search. What happens is the crawlers try to request every permutation of every possible combination of facets. If your page has multiple facets, and in particular facets that accept multiple values, the number of permutations becomes huge. Facet Bot Blocker works by allowing you to set a maximum number of facet requests to allow, what error to return, and a custom HTML message to return to blocked user agents. If you have Memcache or Redis available, it's recommended to use the appropriate module, and Facet Bot Blocker will automatically store its settings there for reduced database reads. The project page is also clear that if you are able to use a true web application firewall like Cloudflare or Akamai, that would be a better strategy. But if you don't have one available, Facet Bot Blocker can help to mitigate the surges in bot traffic that are causing problems for many Drupal sites, particularly those hosted on platforms that charge based on usage. So let's talk about Facet Bot Blocker.
So I'm wondering, like, is this based on, or is this problem based on facets that manipulate your URL? So, like, is that kinda what we're trying to, like, mitigate here is, like, going bots going through each facet and just getting different URLs and then, like, basically caching them?
Right. So every time they enable or disable a facet, that shows up as a part of the query string in the URL. And so those would show to a crawler as being distinct
Mhm.
based on, just using different values. And so it, again, because those combinations, even with not necessarily a huge number of facets, but if you have multiple facets and they
Mm,
each can allow multiple, then it basically becomes sort of like a geometrically expanding
right.
number of potential requests.
So, I guess my question leads me to, like, if you weren't using that strategy of kind of URL structure for facets, like you had a React app or something, you probably wouldn't or might not necessarily need this. Is that safe to
Yeah, I
say?
mean, it is safe to say that there are other strategies for potentially mitigating those. I think somewhere in, I can't remember if it was the project page or in one of the issues on the project, it does mention that there are certain kinds of ways of using facets where you can use like a drop down instead of links per facet, and that also generally will be something that crawlers won't sort of ingest. So that potentially is a different way to fix some of these issues, but certainly having something that looks to be kind of a drop-in solution without having to sort of reconfigure your pages is certainly worth trying if you're a site that's having one of these issues.
It's interesting because right before we jumped on to talk today, I was I was building a commerce demo, and the commerce demo I was building had a ton of facets, like, shirts, jeans. It was like a clothing demo. So it was like shirts, jeans, sizes, colors, men's versus women's, like all these facets, right? And yeah, as I was checking facets, exactly what you said. URL was updating and it was getting longer and longer and longer. So I can definitely see how, this could be a vector for increased bot traffic and how this could be helpful at preventing that. So very topical. Go
So
ahead.
I just want to say that it's something that's been top of mind for me too. In fact, I also had a meeting this morning talking about just AI in general and how this particular issue has become a problem. And I wanted to highlight there's there a couple of interesting things came out of my research. There's a movement to create an LLMs.txt file or some sort of standard to interact with. Now, I think that's a noble goal. I think AI crawlers have less incentive than SEO engines to respect those. So I don't think that they'll work in the
I
short
thought,
term.
is it in the works of being created? I thought there was already some sort of like TXT-esque file you could put in
Y-
place that
Yeah.
LLMs
They
might
don't
pay attention to.
yeah. Might is carrying a lot of weight there. And there's like it's funny if you look at the issue queue talking about it, there's questions about why it's not just using robots.txt, why it's not in well no. I mean, there's a lot of issues, but it is something that needs to be solved. The other thing that is really interesting to me that I found out today, it's a little bit outdated. It's been, I think it's from last September or July. Cloudflare put out a report. So you had mentioned, Martin, you can use a WAF to block this. So Cloudflare has a toggle to block AI crawlers, and they put out a report on what people are using, and 85% of sites are just flat out blocking all AI traffic to their site. So that means only 15% are allowing it or allowing some traffic through.
So basically what you're saying is they're keeping my AI dumb.
I would say that they're respecting people's copyright and information and
I think we should just
not providing it.
bow to our technological AI overlords and let them take all of our information. But anyway,
Well, I will say there is a school of thought in kind of the or SEO community that, effectively AI is becoming the new search. And so to the extent that people are often going now to LLMs like ChatGPT instead of just doing a Google search when they're looking for an answer on something, that if you can have some of your, let's say, product positioning content ingested by AI engines, that there's value there in terms of your perspective on how to answer a question, potentially being part of the answer that somebody would get through an AI engine. And so if you can allow through the AI agents or crawlers to ingest some of your content, but not sort of content like, every permutation of a faceted search page that probably is not really truly giving them a lot of useful insight anyway, that this is potentially, a more nuanced strategy than sort of outright blocking the AI traffic entirely. I also wanted to mention, one of the reasons that I thought it would be useful to mention this module as module of the week today is that when I was at Drupal Dev Days not too long ago, there was a whole session dedicated specifically to how to mitigate, you know, bots on your faceted search page. There was a table on it at MidCamp in the unconference last week. So it's clearly something that's top of mind for a lot of folks. And that's why I wanted to make sure people knew about another strategy that they could potentially employ for that.
Martin
Hmm.
bringing us real world examples from the front lines of Drupal. I love it. Well, Martin, as always, this has been fascinating module of the week. And if folks wanted to suggest or connect with you about the module of the week, how could they go about doing that?
We are always happy to have module of the week discussions in the Talking Drupal channel of Drupal Slack, or folks can reach out to me directly as ManClue on all of the Drupal and social platforms.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Martin.
See you
See you
next
next
week.
week.